for Discipline and Prevention Intervention. And my lovely facilitator with me is Miss Brenda Georges. She is one of our fabulous BIS members, and I'm so thankful and happy to be presenting with her. So we asked you guys, as you were coming into the room, to type in one word about how you feel right now. I know I feel very excited because it's almost fall break and I am ready. Someone said groovy. Hey, Valencia. Someone said pumped. Someone said content. Someone said
muted. What is muted?
Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean?
I don't know.
Like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. So someone said tired. I can agree with that. Tired. Someone said awesome. So there are a lot of things that we're feeling right now, and we just want to be in tune with you. Someone said anxious. Someone said blessed. And all of these things are important. We don't know you, and this room has, right now, there are 234 people in this room right now. Mrs. Georges and I, we're not going to see everyone. And so just like we're taking the opportunity to figure out how you're feeling is the same way we want you to think about your students in the virtual environment. So yes, again, welcome to the professional development of virtual classroom management. Here is the link to sign in. If the sign in does not work for you, please scan the code. You have about 30 seconds before we go into the presentation. I'm going to let in 3 more people. And then
Ms. McCullough.
If you would please, unless you are asking a question, go ahead and mute yourselves. That would help us out a lot as well. We really appreciate that. Okay, so let's get started. The vision and mission statement. We know that our vision and mission has not changed. Because we're in the virtual environment, it is still the same. And I have here highlighted or in bold the word all for the vision, that we are to be a district providing high performance, preparing all students to live and compete successfully in a global society. Also, our mission statement is to empower students to achieve academic and personal goals. Those 2 things have not changed. We're still on the same platform. We're still talking the same language. It's just now we're going to have to adapt how we deliver those lessons. And in the middle school environment, I understand that there can be some challenges. We can have kids not doing certain things. And so hopefully today, part of our goal today is to provide you with some strategies that you can use in your classroom to help you manage the classroom, engage your students, and respond to behaviors in the virtual learning environment in the extended learning beyond classroom. That's our goal. What do I do?
Students fall asleep in my class. My students get distracted. Students.
So we understand that classroom management is not absence of behavior problems. We're going to still have those behavior issues, but rather it's the presence of intentional practices that establish the environment that promotes positive relationships and student engagement to ensure teaching and learning can occur. We are not saying that in this environment, you will not have challenges, that you will. Our goal now is to say, we're gonna have these challenges. Now let's give you some tools to help you deal with them effectively so that learning can still take place. Because research shows that students who are in a virtual environment, 85% of them, when done with fidelity and intentional practices are in place, they are able to excel far beyond a student who has face-to-face instruction. So let's just think about that. We're not saying you're not going to have problems. We want to help you deal with those problems.
Balance. Balance is the key to everything.
Miss Whitlow, we can barely hear that. I don't know. Maybe it's me. Can you guys hear it?
No,
It's
can't,
really
we can't hear it.
hear it,
No.
but it's very
No.
faint.
I'll turn it up some on my end. Okay, so basically what's happening is the quote that was here talks about being balanced, talks about us understanding what that means for us and addressing the need as it is so far. So let me just stop it and go back in and just kind of
Say, eat, care. They all require awareness, and through this awareness, we grow. Every day, you will be met possible.
is that better?
But the question is, how balanced are you?
No, ma'am.
Are you ready? Have you entered that classroom with the mindset that you and your students will grow together? Today, we're going to encourage you to shift how you think and approach this virtual learning environment and how to handle difficult situations.
So basically, the quote that we have up here and what you could barely hear, was saying that we want you all to think about balance. What does that mean? I don't have personal children. I have a dog. And so the balance that I have to give is very little. But we understand that a lot of you have students of your own who are home and they are in the virtual environment. Plus you have to work. Plus you have to do self-care. We want you to think about balance. What can I do to balance out these two worlds, or these three worlds, or these four worlds that I have to endure because it is required of me? Balance. And in doing that, think about how positive, what type of mindset am I bringing to the environment at hand? So you want to just make sure that we are all functioning in the role. So we do see that some people are saying they're having some issues with their microphones and their sound. So give us a thumbs up if you're having an issue with the microphone on your end. Or put it in the chat box and we'll address it before we go any further. Okay, someone said it's distorted. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me better now?
A bit, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's better.
Awesome. Awesome. Good deal. All right. Sometimes this laptop worked just fine a moment ago. Blame it on Clayton County. All right. So here again, someone said, yes, you sound good, but the balance of the sounds. Unfortunately, I'm not a sound tech, so I can't fix the balance in the board, but we will do our best. We do apologize. So before we even get started, let's just talk about this. What do we need to do? Plan, prepare, create, manage, and most importantly, stay calm. Please stay calm. Be creative. And I want to emphasize this. Have an empathetic mindset. Understanding that we treat students with respect. We seek to understand and value student experiences and perspectives. In one of the presentations today, someone mentioned how they had popped into a classroom virtually and the teacher was yelling. You know, I understand that, but I don't understand that. Because if you're an adult and you want me to provide you with respect, we have to give a certain level of etiquette. And we'll talk about that later on as well, that we have to make sure that we're not taking our frustrations out on the individuals on the other side of that screen. They're in this just like you are. And we have to take the approach that we're just working together to build a trusting relationship. And we want to focus in on the greater intention. Yes, behaviors are going to happen. That's inevitable. We're going to be faced with a few challenges. But the condition of the matter is, how well will you respond to the matter, and will you maintain a place and position of peace, calm, and being positive. So preparing the learners. We are well into the year already, but when we come back from fall break, we're going to have to take the same initiative and do this all over again. Preparing our students to start virtually all over again. Start slow. Remember, in the classroom, there are visual learners, there are kinesthetic learners in there are auditory learners. All of these learners are in the environment with you. So you must take into consideration that some of those students require different behaviors. And there's someone whose line is unmuted. Will you please mute your line? Start slow. Familiarize your students with the virtual platform and website. Yes, we have spent the first 4.5 weeks doing this, but I guarantee you, there's going to be somebody after fall break who says, hey, Miss Georges, I don't know how to do this. Or, hey, Miss Whitlow, I need some help. So you're going to have to take time and go through it again. No, it's not wasting time. That's being proactive. I'd rather be proactive than reactive. Allow your students time to practice. I know we're in this rush microwave world, and everything has to be right here, right now. But allow them that time to explore the platform. Allow them the time to give you the feedback. And also, you provide them with feedback, not just, oh, that's good. Oh, I could just say, I don't like that. Or I do like that, but what does that mean to me? I'm a student. I have no idea what you're talking about. So provide me with feedback that's most effective for me. As I look down the list, I could possibly ask Miss Bailey Hamilton, like, how are you doing today, Miss Bailey Hamilton?
Hello, how you doing? I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So
awesome.
Just at random, look in your gallery and be one with them. Give yourself the space and time to learn your students. Ms. McKeever, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
Perfect. Got a smile out of her. It's a matter of just taking time to become one with your class. No, I'm not saying find out all their business, but what I am saying is prepare them for the next venture of the day. Let's talk about this code of conduct. We have the Clayton County Code of Conduct. That still applies in the virtual world. Our students need to be aware that this is going to apply. For example, let's just say, for example, we have a student who decides to, in the chat box, talking to a friend, but not talking to you, they use some profanity. Well, whatever the code of conduct says in regards to disciplining students who use inappropriate language, that still applies in the virtual classroom. And our students need to be aware that regardless of the intent and regardless of the environment, you are still held accountable for your actions. Introduce the same things you would in a face-to-face classroom. Why is that important? For some people, thank God there's no one on this line, what you give in the classroom, you won't give the same effort to it in the virtual classroom. We have to be equitable and give our students the same information. We cannot say, well, this topic is too broad for the virtual classroom. Later on in the presentation, we're going to talk about minimizing bite-sized learning, creating bite-sized learning environments using breakout classrooms, and how you can use those breakout rooms to increase your instruction and get your students more motivated. Make your expectations very clear. If you want your students to come to class on time, be specific. Okay, guys, I need you to come to the classroom at 8:05 in the morning with your assignments already turned into the shared drive and you're ready for instructions. Be very specific. You know, middle schoolers, I've had the pleasure of teaching them, and I understand that sometimes they can be a little bit more shrewd than at other times. So we have got to work on the side of grace and be smarter than them. And kids like structure. I don't know anyone who would say they don't like structure. They need structure, and they want it to be given to them by us. Be warm, be personable. How would you all have felt if I came on the line, Miss Georges and I came on the line like, hey, good afternoon, how y'all doing? That's not inviting. You may decide, I'll just watch the replay. No, we want you to understand, we want you here. We want you to understand that we understand your struggles. And that's why we ask the question. Tell us in the chat box how you feel today. How are you doing? I noticed when I said that, I got a smile from Miss Barry Vance. She kind of gave me a little smile. So I appreciate that because, hey, I'm making myself relatable to her. Build cohesiveness. And lastly, most importantly, teach netiquette. Teach netiquette. I think the next slide is going to be a video. So I'm praying that it works. I have turned up my volume loud enough to make sure that it works. So let's see what happens. Oh, it's not. It's netiquette. Good job. All right, so what is netiquette? Netiquette is the time and space that you use to present or represent the importance of proper manners and behaviors online. So we had this question happen in our last session. Well, what if they choose not to turn their cameras on? Okay, and then we were told, well, what if when I ask a question, they respond to me in broken language? We have to be mindful that our students have been at home since March 13th of last year. And so we have conducted ourselves in a way that's proper for social gatherings, informal gatherings, but our students have to be reminded, and we have to set those general goals of netiquette practices. And then we have to not only set them, but model those behaviors. If I would like for you to type something in the chat box, then I'm not going to say, please to use the number 2 instead of using the words to. Or my greatest pet peeve is type in all caps. If I type in all capital letters, then I'm yelling according to internet etiquette. Our students recognize that. So the moment you start typing to a student in all caps, they're going to shut you down because in their mind, you're yelling at me. You're not respecting my space. You're not honoring me as a human being and giving me the respect that I deserve. So knowing netiquette, using it in the way that will increase your social interaction with your students. Also, netiquette is a short form of network etiquette and internet etiquette, going back to the all caps. I've seen several communications via email and other places where people were just typing and they thought it was a great thing, but someone got offended by the comment, and it was a really, really great comment. But because it was in all caps, the person appeared, or the person who received the message, they, instead of responding in a way that was graceful, they responded very upset because the person was yelling at them by way of capital letters throughout the entire presentation. So your students deserve the same type of respect in their communication. If you're having an issue and you want to address it with that student, we'll talk about this later on as well, have a breakout session and then have a co-host. So we'll just keep moving. Virtual learning success. What does that look like? Simple, user-friendly, consistent, captivating, engaging, sequential and structured, and supportive. I want to make sure I emphasize the word supportive. A lot of our students didn't have laptops over the summer. So now they have a device that we think they should be tech savvy to use, but some of them don't. Some of them didn't have that. So now they're having to relearn their technical skills again, put them back in action. You know, I play the violin and the piano. I play the piano more than I do the violin. So I need someone to be supportive and understand that, hey, I may make a few mistakes on the violin today because I haven't played it consistently. Just being supportive and captivating your audience, knowing who's among you. Like, I love Miss Angela Smith's background. Not sure what that is, but I love it. It has my attention. She has captivated me by just her background, having something in place where your students can relate and you become relatable and personable.
It can feel like a big change.
Can you all hear
Online
that?
Teaching is still teaching. Your virtual
Yes.
will need to be managed, and you will still need to teach responsively and differentiate your instruction. Yes, there will be some adaptations, but setting norms, cultivating belonging, and making your curriculum compelling, those are still at the core. Here are 6 tips from seasoned veterans for keeping students engaged in a virtual environment. Try making your own digital content, like videos or slide decks, but stay laser focused on keeping instruction clear and simple. The research says that being your natural, authentic self is another key here. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and let your personality shine through. Navigating virtual spaces can be confusing, and you don't want students missing critical info. Be sure to have one central hub where all the latest updates go. You can create other spaces like chat rooms or lounges for group discussions or side conversations. Virtual learning doesn't need to be chaotic. Share clear expectations for participation, respectful interactions, and dress code. Ask students to design agreements together to ensure every voice is heard. It will help them stay focused, empathetic, and kind. You may not all be in the same room, but students should feel a sense of community. So make time for small group work and relationship building activities. That keeps the humans behind the texts or video screens connected. Giving your students some space to learn independently builds critical skills, but they'll need support too. Set online office hours so your students know when they can reach you. You should also participate in discussion threads and offer guidance and encouragement regularly. Research shows students retain more knowledge when they've actively engaged with materials. Keep learners from becoming passive observers by finding ways to build in polls, break for brainstorms, or drop guided questions into the instruction.
Okay, so as we prepare for the next section, I just want to get some comments from you guys. Tell me something that you have done to get your day started with your students. Just unmute yourself and just give us some ideas.
Well, this is Bailey Hamilton. The major problem that I had encountered is students having their cameras off. So what me and Mr. Cardenas have done is that we give them 3 words in Spanish because I'm a Spanish teacher. So they go ahead, they run, they look for the word in English, then look for the item and show the item. They have to open their camera to show that item. So it had helped a lot because I don't want my students to feel that we're invading their space. So that makes them feel really comfortable.
Anyone else?
That was fantastic. I love that one.
It reminds me of celebrity game show that what's the little short man that's doing that? Kevin Hart is doing now. You have to run through the house and find things. So anyone else, we have time. Don't let me have to call on you. I'll go through and call on somebody.
I'll share.
Awesome, go ahead.
I'm a band teacher, and so right now we really don't have the opportunity to necessarily be face to face as far as instruments go. So I play a different instrument every day as the kids are coming on, and I let them kind of ask questions about that instrument to pique their interest or whatever. So that's one of the things I do.
Yeah, is there anyone on here from PE or gym? I would love to know what they do to get their classes started, since they can't have kids available. That would be interesting.
Yes, I teach PE.
So what do you do? What do you do, Ms. Hall?
Well, we do we actually do physical activity, routines and during the class period. But as they come in, I like to get them to show me things outside of what we're going to be doing for PE, and a lot of times they will show me their art, things they've been working on, things they're talented in, and they always have something to show, and I have to actually give a time limit on how much they can actually show.
Yeah, someone said show and tell. I like the idea of show and tell, but show and tell with the rubric, please. Show and tell with the rubric.
Yeah, we've got to be careful. They'll show us some things we don't have any business seeing.
Right. Someone else said dojo points, just to get them started. Just to say, hey guys, thanks for coming in today to class. I really appreciate you. All right, guys, good job, good job. Miss Georges, it's on to you now.
Okay. Miss Whitlow, the people are still coming in, so.
I got you covered. No problem.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Glad to see so many familiar faces and smiling faces. We're almost there. We're gonna have a nice week off. We'll be reset when we come back in October. So these things will be, I want it to be October. When we come back the 28th. So these are things we'll have to probably reteach. You know how we always have to reteach the expectations when we come back from a break. So we're going to talk about setting your rules and expectations ahead of time. And we all know that it's important that the children have rules and expectations. If we don't have that, we will have chaos. So we want you to establish clear rules and expectations regarding your discipline. We don't want 25 rules. A simple 3 to 5 rules is what we say optimum, because, well, you have middle school students, but our little ones can only retain the first 3 things you tell them. But even our middle schoolers, they struggle too. My office is in the middle school, and I was a middle school teacher, so I know they struggle. So we do maximum 5. They should relate to your school matrix. That everybody has a school matrix, whether you're PBIS or MTSS, you have a matrix. I know when I taught, we did the 3 R's, respectful, responsible, ready to learn. And so my classroom rules and expectations went along with those 3 R's, and the students, they got to know them, and it kind of, you establish that routine, you establish those expectations. And a lot of times the teachers would say, oh, come on, I know you know better than that, but sometimes we don't. So we have to teach what we expect, and we have to model it, okay? In our virtual environment, it's not that much different. So we're gonna develop and teach virtual classroom expectations. When students come in, like how Ms. Whitlow and I did, greet your students as they log on. You know their names. For middle school, I know you've got 4 periods that you're working with now, and it's different because you're virtual. So sometimes you may remember some of their names, you may not. I'm gonna be honest, even as a middle school teacher, I'd be like, you know your name. I'm an only child, and my mother does that to me now. So I know that remembering kids' names is not always at the top, but our caveat here in virtual is their name is usually on the screen. So even when I go into classrooms now, I may or may not know some of the students, but I could see their name on the screen. And so when I call them by name, you can see they sit up and they're like, oh, wow, Miss Georges knows my name. Yeah, it's on the screen. So it helps. And, but those type of things help you. So I guess this is a plus because we're in this virtual environment. You don't have to memorize their names as quickly as we normally would because their names are on the screen. Walk your students through your routine and how you want them to follow it. You need to make sure your lessons have structure. Your middle school teachers, I know your lessons have structure. But let them know how it's going to work. So I know, you know, when you're in the classroom, it's the I do, we do, they do model. And pretty much in the virtual environment, we're doing pretty much the same thing. So just get them used to that structure. When they come in the classroom, as a classroom teacher, when my students walked in the room, they expected to see the warm-up on the board. And my classroom was a little bit off of the hallway, and so I would still be outside, but that warm-up was up there. So the students would come in and they'd get started. So by the time I walked in the door, they were almost done. We could do the same thing in the virtual environment. As they're logging into your class, have something up there that they can do. Or maybe you send it to them in a chat or whatever it is, however you start your day off. I know most of us are starting off with SEL. And so if that's what you're starting your class with, then be ready for that and have the students know that the first thing we're going to do when we come in here is SEL. We better type in how we feel because that's what they're going to ask us. Those type of things help students get used to your rules, your expectations, your routines, okay? All right, classroom expectations. You need to have those discussions with your students. When they come back week after, you're going to need to give them those expectations again. They've been home for the week. Let's be honest. I'm going to have to reset my whole clock as well so I get used to doing the things again. So do they. Let's just, you know, they're going to be so glad to not be on this screen that we're going to have to get them used to getting back into that routine. Remember to use polite and respectful language. I constantly tell teachers that positive language helps with students. When students feel that you respect them and you respect their time and you respect who they are, they will in turn respect you. So we don't want to come off aggressive or mean because they like to say, oh, that's that mean lady or that's that mean guy. But come off respectful and polite. When you use those type of languages and words, your students will start to use that language and those words as well. Dress code. Discuss with your students what you expect. I know as a district, we want the students to look a certain way when they're in our classrooms, right? And I don't think in the virtual environment, it should be any different. Please don't come to class in your pajamas. If you're in your pajamas, can you put a shirt on from the waist up? My baby has to wear his uniform to school still. He was like, we're virtual. Why do we have to wear a uniform? We're not arguing the point. They're only going to see you from the waist up. Put on your uniform shirt. So those little things. So as teachers, we don't show up in our pajamas to teach. So I expect the students to follow dress code. Please don't show us more than you should be showing us. Sit up. Don't be laying in your bed while we're teaching you, you know, just little things. And I know as middle school, I was in a middle school classroom yesterday and I could see that the student was in the bed. And I was like, I wonder if they told them that they shouldn't be. But it wasn't my classroom. So I didn't say anything, but I will ask the teacher that because if you're, and I can't say because you're laying down, you're not learning, but it's better if you're seated at not everybody has a good space to work, but even if you're sitting on your bed, can you sit up? Put the laptop in your lap, whatever it is, but be sitting up. Please don't be laid out because you're not going to be laid out in the classroom. So we want you to mirror as much of the things that you would in a classroom. So you have to work within the district protocols. I understand that, but you can have those expectations. I expect you to come to class, not necessarily in a uniform, but with a decent shirt or a decent top so that You can sit up. Please don't come in your pajamas. Please be polite when you're talking. Those type of things. We want everybody to be respectful. We have to watch the things we let the students get away with virtually, because they will be eventually back in our classrooms. And if they're like, well, she ain't say nothing when we were virtual, they'll try it when they walk back in that door in your room, and that'll be a whole nother ball game that you don't want to have to deal with.
Ms. George, there's a question.
Any questions so far?
Yes, there's a question for you.
Okay.
And the question is, how should we address bonnets, do-rags, and hats?
So, personally, I don't come in a do-rag. I don't come in my bonnet. And so I'm going to expect you not to come in your do-rag or your bonnet either. The hat thing, that's a little bit different, because I have gone into classrooms and the teacher does have a hat on. So I would check with your principal about the hat part. But the bonnets and the do-rags, they need to come off, because the bonnets and the do-rags aren't acceptable in class, in a face-to-face environment. I'm going to ask that they don't wear them online either. You may get pushback for that. And, you know, choose your battles. If you think it's not that big a deal in your room, then it's your room. But just remember, if you're allowing it in the virtual environment, and then they walk into your classroom face to face with that bonnet on, talk about, I don't want to sweat my hair out. What you gonna say? Because what they're gonna say to you is, well, you didn't say nothing when I was online.
Right.
So that's a FYI for you, because we're talking about middle and high school students. You know, we need to be mindful, because those middle school students, I know, will come in that building with those do-rags on their head or the bonnet, especially if it's raining out. And so if you nip it in the bud now, we won't have those issues. Well, I can't say we won't, because we probably will, but you could say, remember, I didn't allow you to do it when you were at your house. I'm not going to allow you to do it in mine, because your classroom is your house. Okay?
One more question.
Anybody else?
Yes, ma'am. There's another question that Mr. Josiah put in here, and he asks about dark screens, and that's something that we're going to address as we get down later on to the presentation about having a dark screen and how do we correct that issue. Also, someone stated in agreement to you that having norms discussed throughout the semester is important. We have to have those norms discussed throughout the semester.
Yes. And then I saw where someone said, what if they say my mama said? Technically, when they're online, they're in your classroom. Mama doesn't control your classroom. So, like I said, choose your battles. If the student is still engaged, they're doing their work, and they're not bothering you, and that bonnet is not bothering you, so be it. We're not going to go back and forth with parents, especially online. Maybe later you will send an email to that parent or ask your administrator to have a discussion with the parent about the bonnet. Don't get into the power struggle over a bonnet. It's not worth it. Okay?
Right.
All right.
Okay.
I caught some of that last one about the track, but I'll come back to it. Ms. Whitlow, did we skip a slide? Are we good?
We're good.
Okay. So classroom rules. You know, virtually, we have the raise your hand tool. Teach them how to use that. I love it. When I go into classrooms and do SEL, I love those classrooms where the teacher has taught them that, because I'll see that little hand pop up on the screen and I know, oh, okay, Mary, you want to ask a question or you have the answer. It's wonderful. Let's take advantage of these Zoom things that we have, okay? Set an example for behavior. If you expect certain things, lead by example, okay? Students are going to follow what you lead. What you show, they're going to do. And the more you do it, the more they'll start to do it. Just like when you use certain vocabulary, students start to tend to use that vocabulary. You know, when you use academic discourse, your students start to use academic discourse, right? So it's the same with behavior. When you show them appropriate behavior and the way things are to be done, students will start to do them, okay? Let's talk about the distractions.
Yes.
I tried to put up the virtual, somebody was gonna say something?
No, ma'am, you good. Go, you good. I'm checking for you.
I started to put up the virtual background because I didn't want y'all to be distracted by my little AKA lady back there. But the virtual background was distracting me because every time I moved, I felt like my head was in there, right? So let's minimize the distractions. Make sure students realize all phones should be muted. I was in the elementary classroom yesterday and it was driving me nuts, but I tried to be mindful that I was a guest. And the little girl, the teacher was teaching, little girl got up from the seat. She went over to her little dollhouse. She was playing, and I don't think the teacher could see her because she was in Google Meets, and so she was presenting, and so she couldn't see. I have 2 screens, and so I had moved them over to a different screen so I could watch them. But this little girl was all into the toys in her room. Those things are distractions. I did a parent workshop where I told parents, let's try to have the school environment and their play environment separate. And so hopefully they'll start to take heed as more parents are given this parent professional development. They'll see those little things. But in the meantime, you can say those things. At the middle school level, they shouldn't have toys, but trust me, they've got their head down, they're playing the game on their phone, or they've got the game out, or they're texting back and forth. So ask for them to not have the Xbox on, not have the Switch in their hand, or playing on their phones, okay? All right. Establish a routine. We talked about routine a little bit in the previous slides, but when your students know that this is the expectations, this is the routine. When I come in, we're going to start here, then we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and then it's going to be on me. Then they start to pay attention because they don't want, for you to teach something and then say, okay, do it, and they have no clue what they're doing because they don't want to have to ask in front of a whole class, what did you say we were supposed to do? So when you establish these routines, the students also know, okay, I got to pay attention because this is when she's going to tell us what our homework is, when things are due, what she's teaching today, what we need for class, right? If you establish that when they walk in or when they log on, in this case, that the first thing we're doing is typing into the chat how we feel, then that's what they're going to come in and do. Once they do that, they know they need to start on their journaling. Let's say we're doing language arts and we need to start our journal. You have a prompt up, or they've already been given the prompt in the Google Classroom. Establish those routines. Routines, students love routine and structure. They like to fight back against it, but they love it because otherwise they're left to their own devices. So when you do this, it starts, and it'll carry right on over. When we go back face to face, they know Mr. Springer has a certain routine. And so we know when we walk in that door, he's going to ask us, so let me already know my mood so I can tell him or show him. And then let me already get started on my journaling because that's what is expected of me, okay? Promote student social emotional engagement. We are a social emotional district. So that is usually the first thing that is done in classes. I know at the middle school I support, the first few minutes of class in each period is devoted to SEL. We have to engage our students. We need to make sure that we are reaching the whole child, okay? We do care about how they feel. we want to know where they're at mentally. We want to be able to help them to grow. So the quote says, generally, student engagement is the product of motivation and active learning. It is a process rather than a product because it will not occur if either element is missing. Okay? You guys have been doing SEL for years. Now it's just a little bit more structured. Most of you can tell me about the students in your classroom. If I come in as the teacher, as the behavior specialist, and I'm like, hey, can you tell me a little bit about Johnny? You can tell me, most of you can tell me, yeah, Johnny, they're going through stuff at the house, or Johnny is defiant because Johnny's been through this or that. So you've been doing this. You know how to do it. You're good at it. Just keep doing what you're doing, okay? Even in this virtual environment, you can get to know your students. Ms. Whitlow.
So here we
You're
are
on.
talking about social emotional learning, and SEEKS is a program that not all schools are in right now. We do have 2 schools who will be using this program, and this is a way for teachers to start collaborating amongst themselves and almost like preparing themselves for self-help groups, where they look at and mentor each other. They go in and they look at classroom procedures and lessons, and then try to help increase student engagement and investment. And then the independence, promoting student independence within the classroom. And then making sure that children understand and encourage them that what they know is what they know, and they can do it in multiple ways. I remember learning as a kid, 2 + 2 is 4. I learned that because it was rote memory. But then when I came into this new world of teaching, that I just can't tell you that 2 + 2 is 4. I must give you the tools and the strategies to explore why 2 + 2 is 4. And the SEEKS program encourages and it fuels the language of SEL by having, I so got distracted just now. Someone just walked through my backyard, through my office to their, I'm not sure what just happened right now. But anyway, sidebar just happened. See, social emotional learner. He's someone to help me. Why a strange guy in a hoodie is walking through my backyard right now. So this program helps teachers to facilitate that learning and think about how can I get the 3 I's involved in my classroom. And so if you want more information about this program, please email Dr. Egbuna, and she will reach out to your administrative staff, and we can get you started on that. All right, Ms. George.
Okay. Now, I know yesterday our team at Morrow Middle, we did the overview for this, and it looks exciting, and so we're excited to be getting ready to try it, to step into it. Okay, so keep students engaged. I'm going to just be honest. Kids aren't going to turn their camera on. They're not going to be listening to you. They're not going to turn in the work. They're not going to do it if your classroom is not engaging, okay? Make sure the things you're choosing to do work online. Some things that we want to do don't work online. The band teacher was saying, I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was that said they did band. They played the instrument because the kids can't, right? It's not something that can be done online unless they already have their instruments or pick those instruments up when they came. So not everything we want to do can be converted online. So make sure the lessons that you pick work well online. Sometimes that holding it up to the camera, that doesn't work. So if you haven't gotten an opportunity to get your document camera from the building, then find another way to do it. Research shows that there's a connection between higher student engagement and persistence and retention in online programs. So let's just be honest, online works. Yeah. It does. Let's think about it. They've had those K-12 virtual academies for a while, and those students prosper. They don't, so it does work. So even though we have a lot of parents complaining about the whole online thing, online learning has been around a long, long time now. And a lot of us as adults have done online. We've gotten our advanced degrees online. It's sometimes just more convenient than having to sit in a classroom for 4 hours, right? So online does work when it's done correctly. And you guys have become the masters of this virtual learning. I've seen amazing things in classrooms. The way you've utilized these Google platforms and gotten into the extended learning, the documents you show, just the excitement in the classrooms is amazing to me. My hat is off to you. So just keep doing what you're doing. Just let's make sure we keep the students engaged. Don't do a whole lot of lecturing without them coming back at you, because you'll lose them. Because I know when somebody talks to me too much, I'm disconnected after a while. Same with the students, okay? And remember, we have all those different learners in the room. So provide as many different ways as possible to engage. Choice, Ms. Whitlow, this was more your speed, but.
I got you. So when we talk about choice, Carol Ann Tomlinson has this wonderful book out, and the book is called How to Teach in a Heterogeneous Classroom. And what she says is that when we give students the ability to choose their avenue of success, then students' outcomes of succeeding is 99% higher than it would have been had you given them a task that they didn't like to do. So for example, in the virtual environment, you may have where you're doing the DBQs. All right, we all know about the DBQs. They take forever. I get it. I was an academic coach before I was in this position, so I understand the role of the DBQ and how painful it can be to get through. I get it. All right, so choice. You may have a group, a big group, and you can divide, say, hey guys, okay, who wants to take on the first part of the DBQ? Who wants to tackle the second part of the DBQ? And have them go into breakout sessions with a monitored task person with a whiteboard. Now you have just taken the task, the daunting task of getting the DBQ done in one big chunk, and you have divided amongst peers, and they chose the area they wanted to tackle first. We understand that if you give students the power to choose, then it takes away the uncomfortability of not knowing background knowledge. They're going to choose an area that they know well and that they can present their topic well. And from that, they're going to then produce what they know well. I know my job well, but there is no way I'm going to take on the job of Mrs. Georges because I don't know that avenue well. I'm learning it, but I would not dare take on the expertise of someone who knows it better than me. I'm going to learn as she presents to the group. So the matter of choice, also real-time check-ins. What does that mean? I went down the list a moment ago, and so I see Mr. Coleman from Forest Park Middle on the line. Mr. Coleman, how are you doing today?
Doing great, bouncing around with my daughters. How are you?
Good. So I'm doing a real-time check-in with him. Not trying to figure out about his business, just how are you doing today? And now I'm allowing him to respond to me.
Great.
He's doing great. So you have the capabilities in your classroom to get an informal assessment right away. I can look at some of your faces and you're going, you know what? It's almost time for us to be off and I'm ready for fall break. I get it. I totally get it. So we're trying to keep it interactive and keep you motivated to stay with us just a little bit longer. Also, using those digital assessment tools. Guys, you use them well. Kahoots, Poll Everywhere, ClassWit, Google Forms, Edpuzzles, Nearpod. If you haven't used Nearpod, I suggest over the break you try it. It is awesome. It's awesome. It has this thing called Time to Climb, where you can do a race with your kids up a mountain, and they can see their journey up the mountain. So even though they're middle school, I promise you, they're going to want to play this game. I want to play the game every time someone has it in their presentation. So, you know, having crossword puzzles, I've recently discovered that there is a really good background for Google Slides that allows you to do those color by number kind of things in the slides. So there is so much you can do with your kids. And again, you all have used these things well. Now we just want to use them better and go in there and allow our students to have the conversation. Use choice. And I think sometimes with choice, we as teachers, we don't want to release the control to our students. And sometimes we have to just be willing and be courageous to say, okay, let's see what they can work with. And I promise you, if you allow them to take ownership of their learning, they will prove to you that they can do it. Okay, so thinking positive. Mrs. Georges has talked about that consistently throughout her part. And I'm going to emphasize that. We have got to change how we think. If we take on the mindset that they're not going to be, first of all, who is they? They all have names. Every student in the room has a name. And I want to encourage you all, Ms. Georges was saying how you don't have to learn their names, they're on the screen. You as the host, one thing you can do to stop some of the issues happening with names is in the bottom of the chat box where it says more or under your participants in Zoom, you can go in there and disable the function that allows them to change their names. So again, if you are the host, you are the teacher, where it says participants, go down, click on participants, click on the 3 dots, and uncheck where it says allow participants to remove their name. By doing this, they will have to log in with their Clayton County identified name. That way you know exactly who you're talking to. You're not talking to Bebe. You're not talking to Lil B. You're not talking to Peanut Butter and Jelly. You're talking to Portia Whitlow because that's my legal name. And only the computer recognizes the name as an Infinite Campus. So that's one tip to help you guys if you're having a name issue. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Whitlow. Okay, so again, we are able to do that because, you know, I'm having that situation that you're saying that, you know, they're coming with their nicknames and things like that. So am I able to change that while on the call?
Yes.
Or before I made the call available?
You can do it while and before. So just now when I went, I was talking to you all through it. I went in and I unchecked it and I rechecked it. So
okay, so probably I want to choose it before the call. So where do I need to go to do that?
So you would do all of that in settings.
Settings.
Yes, sir. When you schedule the class, and at the bottom part where it says allow breakout rooms and allow for and how many breakout rooms you want in particular, you can go there and say and have an uncheck where they can change their name.
So once they come into the call, is it going to have their name and last name or their email address? Or
it's going to have how it is an Infinite Campus. So it's going to probably be the last name first, last name, comma, first name.
Okay, yeah, I want that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome, my pleasure. And when we say, and I want you to know that from my department, when we say it's our pleasure to help you, it really is our pleasure because we have been in your shoes and we understand that in this virtual environment, it is going to take everybody doing their part, being supportive and providing us feedback as we go along. Okay, so then here's a question. Someone says, if they come in with a bad name, can you click on them and click rename? Yes, you can. I can click on you and tell you, I can rename you myself. So for example, Miss Allen, where your picture is, if I go to your name now, above your picture, there are 3 little blue dots. I can click on that and go down and rename you myself with no problem.
Can I say something?
Sure.
The problem that I see with that and naming is very, very critical in maintaining, order in the virtual classroom. But if the computer, because of technology, flushes them out, when they come back in, they have that same crazy name again. So I have tried to ask the students to permanently change the name, but it is not permanent. So can you help me figure that out?
Yeah, so basically what you want to do is, I understand that, our kids are going to be kids and things are going to happen. And so when they get kicked out, I think the next slide we're going to talk about is things you can do in the virtual setting on Zoom.
Okay.
So one thing we're going to talk about is, number one, two things you can have done. They can register for class, and someone just noted that. They can register for the classroom, and it's already there. Or you can have a co-host. If you are in middle school, so there is someone in your classroom, it doesn't have to be the best kid. It can be anyone in the room that you trust and that you have had a conversation with that's going to help you manage your screen. You can have a co-host on the screen who goes in and changes the name. If they know the kid's name, they can change the name. That's a battle that you don't want to fight. That's a battle that, as a teacher, that will distract you from dealing with the other students. You can have a co-host that can be a student. You can have a co-host that can be a counselor, your BIS. You can have a co-host that can be your student engagement specialist, a teacher, a student leader in the classroom. At this point, it's about building relationships. And so whatever tool you can use to create that environment to help you manage the technical things, that's what you do. As Ms. George has already said, choose your battles. If that is going to be a constant issue, then I want you to just choose your battle. Don't worry about that. Keep going.
If I may give just a little suggestion, what I've done with the names, I kind of allow them to, if they would like to put a sort of emoji behind their real name, I say that they can do that. And they kind of, take that and they like having that little bit of personalization to it. And in that way, I still have their first name there too.
Love that. Love that. Miss Mitchell, Lillian Mitchell.
Yes. I'm just trying to be clear. Where it says in the settings, only authenticated users can join, is that what we click?
No, ma'am.
Because I'm looking at one of them and I don't see it. That's
what I'll do. I'm going to put the tutorial in there in the chat box when we're done, and you'll have it. We'll make sure that you have that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, keeping students engaged. Ms. George, is that me or is that you? All right, can you guys hear me? Because I think my
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm saying you.
Okay, good, thanks.
Hear me.
All right, so keeping the kids engaged. Now, let's talk about that. I'm really animated, guys. So you see me moving my hands around, that's just me. I'm really animated all the time. So discussions. I want to hear your voice. And in the virtual setting, you want to hear your kids' voices. Yes, there's a time and place to talk. My mom always told me I just get in trouble for talking too much in class. I get it. But right now, we have got to get their voices heard, because whatever you practice now in the virtual setting, if and when we return to a face-to-face environment, that same practice they will do when they get back in the building. So if you're not allowing them the opportunity to have discussions and give their point of view, when you get back in the class, you're going to have a dead classroom, and nobody wants to teach in a dead classroom. So that's why we're asking you now to think about ways to break them up. Have those breakout sessions in the room. Have the whiteboards available. You as the co-host or as the host can have general pollings. Our goal was to have some pollings pop up during the presentation today, but we didn't want to prolong the time, but that would help get the discussions going. Also, there's an app you can use that will automatically, you can spin the wheel and all your children who are registered in the classroom, it will stop on somebody just at random, and then that student will have to go in and answer the question or start the discussion. So you want to figure out ways, and also look
Excuse me, what's the name of that app?
I'm going to post it in the chat box. I'm reading off two, like you are. I have two screens and it's on one screen, and I'll get to it and I'll put it in the chat box, I promise. I think it's called Wheel of Names. There's several versions of it, but it's called Wheel of Names. And it randomly, once everyone is registered for the class or you know your students' attendance, you can go in and type all of their names in, and it comes up either gray, maroon, and white, or blue, white, and orange, but it's called Wheel of Names, and you just use it in your classroom. One of the benefits of having a great discussion is students are stimulated, and we don't want to lose our students in the lesson. We don't want to eliminate anyone. Remember, our Clayton County vision statement says all students. We always want to ensure that every student's needs are being met. And so teachers are the most inventive, creative beings I have ever met in my life. So there is a way where there is a will, there is a way. Express your thoughts. Allow your students to express their thoughts, and you'll begin to see that in your SEL time that you'll have more engagement than you ever had, because not only are they allowed to talk in the SEL block of time, they can talk in class. Role playing. Really role playing? Yes, role playing. Because here again, we're trying to make sure that the environment is set for learning for all. So if for example, I might ask Mr. Fisher to tell me about role playing, how might you, Mr. Fisher, use role playing in your classroom? I see someone here named Mr. Fisher on the line.
Well, I haven't really dealt with role playing. This is actually my first year teaching. So I really that's something that I want to get add to my instructional strategies. So are there some ways that you can help me with that? Because I haven't really done that as of now.
Absolutely. So are there any takers before I get started? Is there anyone on the line who's used role playing in the virtual environment?
Okay, so this is Miss Ted Walker. I haven't used role play, but I've done it in the brick and mortar, as everybody, that coined phrase, brick and mortar. I've done it in the building where I've let them, when we first did Georgia Standards of Excellence, or either our GPS, the other ones that we had before the Georgia Standards of Excellence, just allowing them to take a peek at the standards, and they had to present a lesson. This was early on in my teaching career. But they had to present a lesson. They had to use, because there were multiple elements of the standards, use the element. And what they got from that, because I did sort of a survey, was that it is not easy to, first of all, present, to get that together, to find activities. And they were humbled by it, and they were more, what's the word I'm looking for? They were attuned to the fact that it takes some doing in order to prepare to present to somebody. And they were a different class. This was a collaborative setting at the time, 2 teachers in the classroom and everything. And I just saw a change in them. So I'm thinking virtually, you could, release those reins a little bit. I've not done this, so this is my thinking. But release those reins a little bit, give someone, an opportunity to say, be the one who goes over the warm-ups or the bell ringer, make them the co-host for just a little bit, and so the other students can see. And then you can assign students different tasks, or that same task, but different days. So, for a week or 4 days, you assign 4 different students, or for the month, 1 student per week, so that they can see not necessarily the struggle, but just how it is, and and they can have an appreciation for it. Is that kind of the role playing that you're thinking about, Ms. Whitlow?
Absolutely. And also in the breakout sessions, there's someone's line is, can you mute yourself, please? Thanks. In the breakout session, when they go there, the students can have their own whiteboard and they become the teacher. The breakout sessions allow for a more successful role play than the whole classroom, because I'm sure some of your classrooms are very, very large. So when you have the 4 to 5 breakout sessions, there can be students in there that have the topic and they're presenting from their own whiteboard, and it's a digital whiteboard. And students give their responses back to that person, and then that person assigns a facilitator who comes back to the main session and reports out. So virtual role play is key, even down to them creating their own videos in Flipgrid, and then using Flipgrid to present and share their screens. You can have on your screen as the host, you can assign people to be co-hosts. You can assign simultaneous sharing of screens, or you can, I'm sorry. Okay, you can have simultaneously someone sharing their screen at the same time. So you can choose a student to share their screen if their Flipgrid is ready. Some of the benefits of that is the interaction, because right now a lot of our students just have not had the social interaction that they need. And so now by allowing this to happen, students can see their screens, they can see their friends' screens, and they can give feedback. They can provide feedback. And Ms. Mitchell, yes, we will be having this particular presentation. It's being recorded, and you will get a copy of it as well. All right, so then the next section is peer-to-peer. Having a time where it may be that Miss Georges and I, we're in a group together and we're finished with our work in the general classroom. Then Miss Mitchell may say, okay, Miss Portia and Brenda, you guys, I'm gonna let you guys go over to the breakout room, go over there and work on this topic, and then come back and present when you're done. Man, that's major, because now you've allowed us to go and learn independently on our own. And we can solve problems. We can think through critical methods. We can share our screens with each other. And the benefits of that is a dialogue again, having the academic discourse amongst peers. Now, you're not going to leave them there by themselves. No, you're going to pop in and pop out as you see fit. Or if you have a co-host that's a teacher or a counselor, they can pop in and pop out as well. You have that liberty. You do not have this liberty in Google Meet. It is only in Zoom. And it is safer in Zoom than Google Meet. So we want to make sure that you guys, we're giving you all that we can possibly think of to help you. Okay? I think this is Miss George's part now.
Okay, so addressing these behaviors in the virtual environment. Don't let it get you where it has you off your teaching game, okay? We're gonna have discipline issues. I have to be honest, as a team, we were like, we don't have to worry about this. You know, we're not gonna have to do these reports every month because there shouldn't be any write-ups, there shouldn't be, but there are. And there's even suspensions, truth be told. Because kids are kids. It doesn't matter if we're face-to-face or virtual, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. And so as adults, we have to find a different way to address those behaviors. We can't just literally put them out the classroom or just call the administrator to come up to your room and get them, right? So we want you to start to use different tools. I don't know how many of you have heard about the 4-to-1, where you do like 4 praises to every 1 correction you're doing. When students start to see other people being praised, their whole disposition changes because they want to be praised as well, right? I know it works in the little ones' environment. You should see the beaming of their faces when the teacher calls their name. Truth be told, the middle schoolers want to hear their name called too for something good. And so we need to start to do that more often. And even if it's this, if we praise and correct the same student It's fine. So when you say, oh, Johnny, you're doing a fantastic job of answering the questions as I've asked them. In the future, can you wait a little bit longer so that the other students have an opportunity to answer as well, or to think the answer through as well? Now you've corrected them, and they've heard it, but what they heard first was, I'm doing a good job in answering the questions. I'll wait a little longer next time. They're not hearing, Johnny, you did a great job of answering the question, but next time I'm gonna need you to wait. That but gets them every time. As soon as you say but, they're like, here we go. And that's just the truth of the matter. Even as an adult, when someone says to me, oh, Georges, you did a great job. I really enjoyed whatever it is you did. And they say, but, I'm like, but, what you mean, but? You know, I'm already, my attitude changes. I may not show it, and I have to work on my face. I do have to work on my face, because my mouth won't say, what do you mean, but my face says it. But we have to, you know, kind of work that through. So the more we praise and the less we use that but, I think the better we'll be. They have an app. PBIS.org has this app. Yes, when you say but, it cancels everything else. Exactly, Ms. Owens. Because they don't hear, they no longer hear that praise. All they hear is what they did wrong. So just like I did with Johnny, I gave him that praise and the correction in one statement. I never used but. So he got everything. He's like, oh yeah, okay, she likes my answer. She likes the fact that I'm doing my work. And I'll slow up so that everybody else gets an opportunity to do it as well. It's not, but she's telling me I can't do it fast. It wasn't like that, right? So they won't take it like that. And then PBIS.org has this B+ app. And the app reminds you to look for specific positive behavior. So like I can look around, and I know y'all are like, why is she moving her head away from the screen? You guys are on my other screen. And so when I look this way, I'm looking at all of you, right? And so the app will remind me to give positive behaviors, you know, acknowledgement. So I can see that you're paying attention to me. So I may say that. I may say, oh, Miss Mitchell, I love the way you're sitting up and so attentive. Just small little things. Doesn't have to be anything major. The link for the app is here. And of course, you'll get this presentation, so you'll be able to click on the links. All right. Know your students. Knowing your students helps. And I know it's a little weird because we didn't get to meet them like we normally do. When we went out in March, we knew our babies. So we knew what was going to work, what wasn't going to work, what they do, what they don't do. But these kids, unless you moved up with your kids, these kids are pretty much new to you. And so we want you to start to build those relationships virtually. You know them, so you can anticipate their behavior. I had a teacher that is a science teacher, and when I tell you her lessons face-to-face were awesome. I used to be like, oh my God, I love this class. Like I used to just go to her class to see what she was up to. But I had to tell her, because I was observing her room one time, and when I tell you she had this experiment and it was so awesome, but because she didn't plan for the behavior in her room, only some of the kids got it. So we talked about that and talked about how she can work it next time to plan for those behaviors. And the next time I went in and she was doing something, she had planned for the behavior. So she knew that Johnny was the one that was going to do everything he could to not, you know, he was going to blow up the lab with the Bunsen burner. Johnny was her partner. So she stepped him through and she guided him. He was the one that was showing the rest of the class what to do. She planned for his behavior. So you know the scholars you have now. We are 5 weeks in, almost 6. So plan for those things, okay? Be specific in your praise. When you say, good job, the student is like, okay. When you're face to face and they get in the car with their parent after school and the parent says, hey, how was school? And you say, the kid says, oh yeah, she said I did a good job. I did great. And the parent says, oh yeah, on what? I don't know. She just said good job. Be very specific. Johnny, I love the way you sat down, got started, or in this virtual world, Johnny, I love the way you logged in on time, sitting up, prepared, and ready to learn. Johnny knows. Oh, okay. She noticed that I'm doing what she asked me to do for the last 4 weeks. I finally got it right, and she's letting me know she sees me. Okay? A good example is, thank you, James, for raising your hand and waiting to be called. So we're not doing the great job, good job, son, good job, sweetie. It's not enough. We have to be very specific in our praise, okay? I have to work on this, and as a teacher, I had to work on this. Avoid the sarcasm. Now, some kids, the sarcasm goes over their heads, but others are very attuned to it, and they're like, oh, she want to be funny, huh? So we have to be mindful of that. So saying things like, thank you, Mike, for behaving like a human being, not the most appropriate thing, okay? So we're going to avoid that sarcasm. And I know, oh boy, we've got a lot of them because I've heard them. And so we want to be mindful of that. Your behavior intervention specialists are here to help you. We have 10, 11 of us now. And so, yeah, we do serve several schools, but virtually, hey, we even have, we have more flexibility. I said to one principal the other day, I'm like, I'm so glad we're virtual, because me and my car would have probably gotten a ticket today, because I've had 4 different meetings in 4 different buildings back to back. And if I was driving, somebody wasn't going to get seen. It's just, inevitable. But especially virtual, we can pop in and pop out of your classrooms if you need us. We're here. Use us, okay? My schools, they don't hesitate. I get the emails, Ms. Judges, I need you to do this, or Ms. Judges, I need you to do that. We're willing and able. Use us, okay? And so our department has a teacher toolkit. I did the teacher toolkit. Use it. It has so many things in it. I think the slide number 3 has like a little Brady Bunch box type thing. And it has, I think I did about 14, maybe 16 different common behaviors that you would normally see. And if you click on it, it'll take you to Intervention Central, and it'll ask you a few questions. Is the student doing this, this, and that? And if you say yes, they'll provide you with Tier 1 interventions to use in your classroom. It's simple. You don't even have to come up with your own intervention. And I think I covered most of the things I would see in class. I know we have a lot of disruptive behavior, a lot of disrespect, things like that. Those little Tier 1 interventions, you can nip that in the bud really quickly. And it gives you specifics. It tells you how to implement. Use that behavior toolkit, that teacher behavior resource toolkit. I know it's housed in your CIA hub. So where you go for academic things, that teacher toolkit is in there as well. And most of us have shared it with your school administrators. So it may be somewhere on your school website, or check with your facilitators. They may be able to give you direct access to it. Okay? If you have questions, email us. We'll send it to you.
Ms. George,
if you can't find it in the hub.
There's a question for you. And the question says, what if the sarcasm is directed toward you and not the scholars? How do I deal with that?
Oh, if the student is being sarcastic to you, because I was talking about you being sarcastic to the student. So you realize that when the student is doing that and it's disrespectful, that is a violation of school code. The school student code of conduct. Depending on what the words are and how it comes off, some kids just don't know social etiquette, and so it may not quite be that they're being sarcastic, but check them, ask those questions. You know, were you speaking to me? A lot of times just that question, like, were you talking to me? They're like, oops, maybe that wasn't meant. I shouldn't say that to the teacher if they're asking that question. I've had that a lot. Like they say something slick and I'm like, were you talking to me? And they're like, no ma'am, because they realize what they said was inappropriate. So sometimes just a little redirection or correction in how they've said it or what they've said is all you need. And that needs to be done away from the whole class. So if you can privately chat to them or ask them to hang back when everybody else is leaving. Hey, Johnny, can you hang back for a second? I want to talk to you about something. Just simple, okay?
What I was actually asking is, you're making sarcastic remarks about yourself. The teacher is actually making sarcastic remarks about him or herself in order to generate some humor, to incorporate some fun.
Oh, that's different. That's totally different. So you're just bringing some humor to your class. That's definitely fine. It's when you're directing that sarcasm at the student themselves. So I know I'm sarcastic about myself at times, and the students, they're like, especially the little ones, they're tickled by me because they're like, Ms. Dreyfus is silly. And that's fine. That's definitely fine. It's when you're talking to the student sarcastically about themselves. All right, Ms. Owens, did that clarify for you?
Yes, because I'm quite sarcastic and I'm funny, and the kids see me as silly too.
Exactly. And you know what? That helps because they're like, oh, she's human.
Absolutely.
And so that builds those relationships. Okay. You'll have a lot less disrespect towards you in your classroom because they see you as human. Okay.
And we have one more question. We'll address it toward the end. And it's about hijacking meetings. That's why it's very important to have those waiting rooms like I have right now.
Mm-hmm.
See who it is.
And we need to stop using I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. We need to stop using Google Meet.
Yes.
The Zoom gives us a lot more protection. It gives us a lot more control. And it has so many more features that work for this teaching environment. That Google Meet, you know, when you go to share your screen, you can't see the students. So, you know, we need to be mindful of that. Come on, take delete. Come on over to Zoom for those of you that haven't yet, okay? Maintain positive attitudes and be respectful, even when you have to correct unacceptable behavior. And we know we're going to see it. We know we're going to see it. Use it. Use it as teaching moments, okay, as much as you can. And let's try to minimize the dressing down in front of the whole class, because that'll get you a lot of times into that power struggle. So we have the chat. Use the private chat. Ask them to hold back. Send them to a breakout room and talk to them in the breakout room. You have some options. And I saw in the chat that they said it happens in Zoom as well. It shouldn't happen as often in Zoom because you should utilize that waiting room. So you should know who you're letting into your classroom. And if it's a student that's in your classroom doing it, then that's a violation of school policy and code. And they should be referred to either the administrator or your grade level chair, however your chain of command works. Let's try to reach out to our parents. Weekly contacts, whether it's a mass message to your whole class, to the parents. A lot of teachers use Remind. At the middle school level, I don't know if you're so much into the Class Dojo as the elementary level is, but that goes right to parents as well. I, as a parent, I like Remind. it works for me. I know what's going on. I can see it. Have your parents do the weekly summary now that we're virtual in Google Classroom, or the daily summary. They can choose what they want to see. I see mine daily, so I know before the end of the week what my baby is missing, because I don't want to sit on Thursday night trying to get everything in. I know every night what you haven't done. Okay? So those type of things help. And parents will support you. They will. Just ask. They will support you. Okay? I know we at the middle school level, you don't have as much parent involvement as at the elementary level until they get to 8th grade, right before they're supposed to move on or have those end of year activities. Then everybody wants to be involved, but get them involved as much as possible. Do your part. If they don't respond, at least you've done your part, okay? And Ms. Whitlow, we can, all right. Be warm, accepting, but firm. So create an engaging and warm virtual environment. I know you guys are awesome teachers, so I'm preaching to the choir. Most of you have done this. Students love teachers that are warm, that are fun, that are engaging, that are friendly. You don't have to be their best friend. My students always were like, Ms. Georges is cool, but don't play in her room. Right. I'm cool. And I was the one that planned all the activities and did all of that, but I had expectations. And so I expected you to behave a certain way in my room. I expected you to behave a certain way in the hallway. I had expectations, and I expected you to live up to them. I was your parent at school. And so what you didn't learn at home, I taught you. And so when you didn't do what I taught you, then you were disappointing me. And so when you teach the expectations and you're firm, but still warm and friendly, the students love it because they want that. Sometimes you're the only thing that's stable in their lives, okay? And so be that person, be that warm, inviting teacher. Make your expectations clear so there's no questions. Teach the expectations, teach the behavior you want to see. Okay, let's not depend on the fact that, yeah, their parents should have taught them home training. No, we're going to teach them what we want them to know. Okay, so when they don't do it, we know they've been taught because we've taught it. And so then it is the fact that they're not living up to expectations. Okay, remember that we are in a virtual world and things are happening. We can't pretend they're not happening. Listen, we're not living in the land of fairies. This is rough. And so we want them to know we understand this is rough. It's rough for us too. I want to go hang out with my friends, but I can't do that. So, you know, let's make things as normal as possible, but remember that we're still trying to learn and we're still trying to teach you. Okay, give them as many outlets as possible to be as creative as possible. I'm not that creative, but I allow the students to do what they can. Okay? Ms. Whitlow, I keep wanting to hit this thing like I can make this thing move. Strategies to address disruptive conversations. Now, this is what you were just speaking about. I saw the chat keep coming up. Yeah. Generally, class removal or exclusion should never be your first line. So just because Johnny won't be quiet after you put him on mute, please don't just send him out. Do the chat, talk to him, put him maybe into that breakout room while you give the other kids another assignment and talk to Johnny. Johnny, cut it out. Or you are going to be in virtual punishment. I'm going to kick you out of my room. You can mute them. You can kill their video. You can do a number of things before you totally chuck them, okay? But have those conversations. Have those conversations. You will cut down on a lot of this when you build those relationships with the students, okay? So they'll know when you say stop to stop. Mm-hmm. So those type of things help. Being in the Zoom platform helps a lot because you can send them to that breakout room and they can go with if you have a para, you can send the student and the para to the breakout room. You can maybe even make an appointment with your behavior specialist so that next time Johnny's in your room, when y'all all log in, you send Johnny straight to the behavior specialist in that breakout room, okay? I know you can't always deal with things right away, so sometimes we just do have to put them out, but let's make that our last resort, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. For minor things, report the incident to your administrator. At the end, don't spend your whole class redirecting students. Hit the all mute button and just let them be quiet if need be, okay? We can also call parents. Like, I've sat in on classes and watched it and been like, oh, okay. And sometimes I've had to say stuff to the student. And when they realize there's somebody else in the room, suddenly they're like, uh-oh, and they get it together, okay? Like Ms. Whitlow was saying earlier, you can get a co-host. Pick somebody. If you don't have a para in your room, because if you don't have a collab class, you don't have a para, but sometimes you can get your student engagement specialist to come on in if your building has one. Like I said, ask your behavior specialist to come in and you know, observe your room or help you manage your room if you have those students that you know are constantly doing this and you've addressed it. We have virtual ISS. Let your administrator know. They're going to have to serve some ISS. We even have, as the Department of Prevention and Intervention, we have an alternative to ISS where the students will come to us Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon for 2 days. And so we have things that will work if you need them, okay? Ms. Whitlow. You're on mute.
Someone is
okay, we'll mute them.
Thank you, appreciate you. So ways to engage distracted students. I want to address the question that came up. I think Ms. Owens asked the question about how do I get my parents involved virtually a little bit more. Was that your question, Ms. Owens? You're muted.
Yes, it was. I asked that, do you have any tips to increase parental involvement virtually?
So one of the things that we're asking, or that you can do, is hold a Google Meet, hold a Zoom Meet for your parents. You know, we understand that a lot of our parents are just not able to be at home with our scholars during the day. And so Ms. Georges and I and our whole entire department, we have office hours. And for me, some of my office hours are after work hours. I'm not asking you to do that. But if you want to get your parents involved, you got to be inventive and creative. And I'm having those individualized parent meetings in your classroom and inviting them into the Zoom meeting and showing them what your classroom actually looks like virtually might encourage them. Also, Class Dojo. Don't just use it to give out points. I would use it to communicate to parents at the moment the action happens. My mom used to always tell me, I'm going to get you when it happens. I'm not going to wait and do it. I'm going to get you right now. And so using Class Dojos helps the parent as well to see exactly what's happening at the moment that it's happening. And you're not coming out of your classroom. You don't have to do anything to take away from the lesson. It's a simple text message, or if you're on your laptop, a simple message to your parents to get them involved and say, hey, I've got a problem with someone. Portia's not following instructions. Can you send her a message? And this actually happened in one of our schools. I think it was last week. Problem happened in the classroom. Mom was not there. So the teacher, Dojo, the parent, mom called. You could hear the mom on the child's camera. Mom had called the kid on the phone. The child forgot to mute himself, and mom was blasting him out in a nice way, but she was letting him know, hey, you're there to learn, turn that camera on, let's get started. So using what you have can help you a long way. We've already talked about these things. These are just kind of like basic recaps, making sure that your activities are interesting. Don't bring me a boring lesson. How would you all have felt if Ms. Georges and I came in like, hey guys, how you doing? Let's get started. real dry, just whatever, it's Friday, blah, blah, blah. No, you've got to make your activities interesting. You've got to make sure that it's engaging and that it's stimulating your students to move. Yes, this presentation will be available to you all at the end. You will get this as well.
Excuse me, Miss Portia?
Yes.
Okay, if you're doing all of that, and my colleagues who know who I am, I'm very animated, and I'm in music. I'm animated like you. But when you have 8th graders coming in at 8:15, they ain't studying nothing. Okay, so I could do all of the bouncing around, but I understand what you're saying about using all the different technical gadgets and getting them involved, getting them leadership roles and so forth. They don't want to wake up.
Right.
And I hate to always have to, I hate to have to always use the, okay, you're great on them. I want intrinsic value to come out. I want them to know, all the SEL that we're learning. Yes, it's early. Yes, it's raining. Yes, you may be hungry, but we have to achieve something today. But I mean, if you're doing all the entertainment at them, then they get used to you being the one who's entertaining them for education. And I'm tired of that with those 8th graders.
So Ms.
Get them involved. Make them be the entertainers.
Right. Absolutely.
I can't get them to wake up.
Hold them accountable. I know. So those are those conversations now that we now have to have with parents, because that means they're up too late at night.
Yes.
So they're not motivated in the morning. I was not a morning person until they gave me bus duty. Okay. So I had to be out there on that bus lane. I became that morning person. We have to talk to our parents, because those kids are up half the night playing the game or video chatting or TikToking or whatever it is they're doing. They got to get in those beds, because that's why you've got lackluster 8th graders first thing in the morning.
Yeah. That's
just it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, Ms. Chandler, I have heard you have done some awesome things with your students. And, as Ms. Valencia said, Fortnite has them hooked. So we got to figure a way. We got to figure a way of getting our students into the platforms. And we've got to model for them, model, even if it means you creating some screencasts yourselves and dropping them inside your Google Classrooms so they can go back in. Because, middle schoolers, they want you to think that they have arrived. So if I put in some tools for you in my Google Classroom that's separate from Zoom, where you can go in there and navigate your way through on your own, then you can come back to those things. We cannot forget best practices. And as Mr. Frudiger just stated, your tone won't fix it. But we've got to be positive, presenting a positive demeanor instead of being negative. Let's just make a difference. And that's us being creative. And that's why we have these professional developments, to hear each other's opinions and what's working for you. I love that I think it's over at the middle school, she said that one of the girls came in with her weave messed up, and she put a track on the front of her forehead, and then the girl stopped messing with her hair, from that point on. And then someone else said that the kid was coming in with a blanket every day, and so he decided to put a blanket on, and the child said, oh, well, wait a minute, let me turn my camera on to see what he's going to do today too. So we just got to be inventive and creative at this point. And we are almost out of time. This has been a good session, so I want to move pretty quickly. Again, we've got to think differently. Think differently. Not change the approach, just think differently. Because when you come to the virtual environment and you have said, well, you know what, Johnny's not going to have his computer on today. Portia's going to be over there playing with her hair today. Brenda is going to have her camera on some of the time. When you come in with that mindset of what happened yesterday, then today won't be successful for you. So you've got to, get in those playgrounds. We have all of these virtual playgrounds that Clayton County has given us, and we want you to be creative. Again, I say, teachers are the most creative beings on this earth that I know of. You can do things at a drop of a hat and make corrections. Let's work on doing that. Enhance your own learning, enhance their learning by incorporating web researches. We have a virtual calming room that our department put together. And in that virtual calming room, there are some links to actual live NASA sites, links to museums in Greece, links to museums in London. Have them do some of those things. And also, by all means, use your Google Docs. Use your Google Slides. Get everybody involved at the same time, working on the same task, but in their own way. Note taking. You know, the paper pencil thing may not work for us right now. So note taking on a whiteboard. I keep saying that. You have these tools in Zoom. Use the whiteboard. Use your polling. Have in those instructional games. I did put into the chat box some of the actual ways you can use virtual spinners and those things. Use them. Some of them with staff picks, kid picks, stick picks, a teacher pro picker. All of these are tools that you guys can use to just kind of help alleviate some of the burden that you guys have to wear. And we are conscious that our teachers have made the greatest challenges and greatest change in a challenging environment. And we appreciate the work you have done. And so now we just want to give you the necessary tools to get you moving forward. Have your kids working groups. Make them hold them accountable. Don't give the group lead to the one who's going to do the work all the time. Give it to the one who, answers when you call on them. Make them responsible because the team is dependent upon them. It's all about your tone. It's all about being positive, and it's all about making them feel engaged. And having those early morning conversations, I am convinced now that SEL in the morning before we get started is the way to go. Encourage everyone to answer questions. How do we do that, Ms. Whitlow? Someone raised their hand virtually and I recognized it. Don't put me on the spot. I may not want to talk to the group. I may just use it in the chat box. I may send you a private chat. Then address my question, maybe not use my name, but address my question. So we just got to be inventive. Also include various future projects. Get your parents involved with that. Don't let them do the work, but get them involved. For example, I had my fiance's son was doing a quiz, and the teacher was not clear. In his defense, she was not clear. In another county, not in ours, when she told him to answer the quiz, she didn't tell him it was open book. You just gave him this little pop quiz. So he went on Google, found the answer, cut and pasted it, put it inside the answer, got 100%. He did it twice. So she emailed my fiance and said, "Hey, Mr. Lewis, such and such has, used the Google to answer the question." And so I asked him, why did he do it? He said, because she wasn't clear. She just told us to do the quiz, and I didn't know if it was open book or Google or not. So just being sure that we are providing them with the necessary tools, making sure we create healthy competition. Someone's lines unmuted. Being critical thinking and encouraging behaviors that are supportive for all of our students. Last but not least, micro learning. We have given you guys a lot today, but if we could have done this in a different setting, we would have chosen bits and pieces to do one at a time. So micro learning, bite-sized instruction. If you believe that this topic is too broad, that's why you have breakout rooms. Breakout rooms help us to, someone's music is playing in the background. Can you mute the Miss George for me? Breakout rooms help us to do bite-sized instruction. If you need help on those tutorials, once you log into Zoom, they have a plethora of self-help videos there. Someone asked about closed captioning. Yes, we do have closed captioning in Zoom. I put those instructions in the chat box as well. All of these things can be done in your settings, but you just got to go in there and explore it. Break the instruction down so that your babies can get it. Spend 5 to 15 minutes on a segment if you can, and then move on to your breakout rooms where you can dive deeper into that topic. And again, be positive, be specific, stimulate them, be creative. And the one thing, guys, please, please, please stay what? Calm. Stay calm.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am. So I think, okay, we've already talked about Miss Georgia. Now we're pretty good at doing this. We have talked about these next few slides together. So we talked about praising them, making sure you use the sandwich method, making sure you be confident. Guys, if you're not confident in your role right now, it's not going to happen. You've got to maintain your confidence, and don't let them see you sweat. If you mess up, you know what? Hey, I messed up. Like Miss Georgia, you guys told me my sound was jacked up for a minute. Okay, let me get some headphones on and put it in. And I embrace the corrective feedback, and they will too. And all we want you to leave with today is knowing that you can do this. You have the tools to make it happen. And so, Ms. Georgia, do you have any closing words you want to give to the team before we do the evaluation link?
Let me come off mute before I start talking this time. You guys have been a great audience. I saw in the chat that we were talking about the SEL. Please use your SEL. It works. It works. I like to do the morning circles or the circles at the beginning of each class, where a lot of the teachers are just saying, you know, let me know how you feel. Or the you can have that discussion if you have time, depending on what your lesson looks like. You know, if you see students that don't look, it'll work even better when you're face-to-face. But if you see, or when they give you how they're feeling, if you get a lot of, oh, something is wrong, where, you know, most of the students will say good or tired. But if you get a lot of bad, sad, mad, you need to address it. Okay? But that would be a very good opportunity in which to do that. The Rethink Ed platform is fantastic. Use it. It works. It's great. Just remember, guys, don't choose your battles, okay? Don't get burnt out over silly things, okay? The do-rag, the bonnet. If the student is still doing their work in that bonnet, and it's okay to let it go. Address it with the parent if it's that a big deal, okay? But don't get yourself worked up over little things. We got a ways to go with this. So let's take it, you know, one step at a time. Enjoy this break because we need it. You guys have been working really hard. And like I said, I've been in classrooms. It is so awesome. You guys are the best.
Absolutely.
Pat yourselves on the back because you are doing a fantastic job.
Absolutely. Guys, we've given you the evaluation link, and kudos to you guys for hanging out with us for these 2 hours. We really appreciate it. We tried to get you out of here in time, but you had such great questions. And Ms. Georges and I really appreciate you guys being with us, and we hope we can do this again. If you need us for anything, please do not hesitate to reach out and call us. And we're there. Email us. In the chat box, you'll find the evaluation link. Please give us your feedback because guess what? We want to make our PDs to the point that you want to come to them and you want to be a part of our group and we be a part of your world as well. So with all that being said, have a phenomenal break.